My name again is Andres Tobar. I came out here 33 years ago, and as a candidate we come up here, we are thrust in so many issues, and some of them obviously we know better than others, and so everybody brings their strength. What I bring is in terms of community involvement, working to try to solve problems. There's a lot of issues in our communities here that we're meeting critically, and we need somebody that can bring a whole lot of folks. Tomorrow, if I can make this announcement as part of my closing, I'm the coordinator for the Arlington Service Provider to the Poor. We're having a meeting at noon to talk about alcohol and the poor, because that is one of many issues that is dealing, and we're having a discussion at Our Lady Queen of Peace at noon. The kind of issues that I want to bring, and the civility that I want to bring to Richmond as your delegate is to try to solve problems. The other thing that I will do is being the Latino candidate that would also energize the almost 100,000 Latino voters in the state. I would be working very hard to ensure that we get more Democrats elected. Thank you very much.
I'm Adam Parkhomenko again, and my website is voteadam.com, where you can see more of the issues we talked about tonight. As I mentioned earlier, I grew up in Arlington. I've lived here my entire life, and all of the public schools I went to are also in the 47th district. I'm running because I believe I bring a fresh voice and new energy. I'm 23 years old. I'm the youngest person to run in Arlington before. I raised the most money in this field in the first quarter, and I left my job at Missing and Exploited Children to campaign for this seat. I've knocked on thousands of doors throughout the campaign. I actually started my campaign over in Jefferson and in Fillmore. One of the things you hear, and you always hear throughout campaigns in Arlington, is that nobody listens to South Arlington. And we have a few elected officials that live in South Arlington, but most of them don't. And so that's where we started. I'm working really hard every day. I do believe this can be a full-time job. I opened up a headquarters where I grew up in Lyon Park. I've got 5 full-time people that are working there all day, every day. And we're working really hard. I think that we can have a delegate that can knock year-round, can educate and bring in the new generation so they know what the House of Delegates is, they know what the delegate does, and somebody that can continue to come to these meetings year-round and go and advocate in front of the school board and the county board for you. And I'm proud to be that candidate. I hope you'll consider me, and looking forward to seeing you when I'm back in your neighborhood.
Well, I'm Patrick Ho, and I thank you all for coming out. I think you're missing American Idol tonight, so I appreciate you doing that. You can go home and call if you need to. Thank you, but thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming out tonight. You know, I've enjoyed the conversations that we've had, the different policy discussions, and I think it's pretty clear that you're not going to see a whole lot of light between us on the policy. And you know, the one question that I get over and over from voters is, you know, we have a lot of people on the ballot. How do I decide? I don't know who to choose. And you know, I tell them that the policy is going to be the same, and it's been demonstrated here. You know, people are going to vote the right way. But I think a delegate needs to do more than just vote the right way. It has to be an effective legislator. And think about what it means to be effective. You have to know how to reach across the aisle and bring people together. You have to build coalitions, build interest groups, even with your own party. Not everyone agrees. You have to be able to bring people together, know how to craft legislation, and know when to reach across the aisle. Know when to, not always, but when to do that and bring people together. I've done all of those things. As Community Services Board Chair, I've brought in millions of dollars right here into Arlington by working together with people, by bringing people together, by building coalitions. President of my Buckingham Civic Association, I've done the exact same thing by bringing my community together. I have the proven results. I've done it. I know what it takes to be effective. I have the most political endorsements than anyone else running for that reason. Not because they're IOUs, not because they're friendships. It's because there's a mutual respect and appreciation for what I've done for the last 10 years for Arlingtonians. I've been fighting for Arlingtonians, for the most vulnerable populations. And you send me to Richmond as your delegate, I'll continue to fight for you. Thank you very much.
Again, I'm Alan Howze, and thank you all for coming out tonight. It's again a pleasure to have a chance to talk to you more in depth and to hear some of your questions. For those folks who I haven't had a chance to knock on your door yet, I'll be there. I'll be coming. coming around. And I look forward to continuing that conversation then. I bring to this race a lot of experience, both working in the private sector and in the public sector, direct experience working down in Richmond with Governor Warner, working with the legislature, closing a budget shortfall, making investments in our priorities around education and healthcare, public safety. I've been there and I've done it, and I want to do it again. This time to serve Arlington and to serve you and to, I think, address some of the big challenges that we face. So, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, the economy, I think, is the big challenge that we have to address now. And I think that the state has a role to play in partnering with President Obama in making investments in our community that will renew Virginia through investments particularly in transportation and mass transit, investments in education, both at K through 12 and higher ed, investing in universal pre-K, and making investments in energy efficiency to meet some of our challenges around conservation and global warming. So I appreciate your questions, your interests. We're about 9 o'clock here tonight, so I don't want to keep everybody too late. And I look forward to the opportunity to continue the conversation. Thank you.
I'm Josh Ruebner, the Green Party candidate for the 47th District. I want to thank you all for coming out and spending your evening here with us tonight. And let me just put in a little plug. I turned in all my ballot signatures to the registrar last week, and I thought I had amassed plenty in order to get on the ballot. But I heard from the assistant registrar a few days ago that I'm 4 signatures short. So I'm still looking to collect a few. So if you wouldn't mind helping me make that final push and signing my ballot, I'd appreciate that tonight, so that we can have a real election, a real choice, come November 3rd for the general election. There's so many issues that I want to fight for down in Richmond, if I'm honored enough to be able to do that we didn't get a chance to talk about here this evening. For example, ending the death penalty in Virginia. We execute the second largest number of people in the entire country, only behind Texas, and that's a travesty. We have a system where if you're convicted of a crime, even if it's a nonviolent crime, you're stripped of your voting right for the rest of your life, even after you're out of jail. That's also a travesty of justice. It's almost impossible for someone to get their voting right back. We need to change that law so that people who have served their time, pay their debt to society, can rejoin, reintegrate, and be a part of our communities and enable them to participate. We need to change the fact that if you are an undocumented worker or the child of an undocumented worker, and maybe you've lived your entire life in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and your parents have paid taxes into the Commonwealth of Virginia for your entire life, yet you can't get in-state tuition into Virginia schools unless you have the right papers. Well, I think that has to change too. And these are just some of the issues that unfortunately most Democrats just won't touch. But as an independent, Green Party, third party, not constrained by the finances of corporations, able to talk about these issues that other parties can't, I bring a progressive voice to the table, and that's why I urge you to vote for me on November 3rd in the general election. Thank you very much.
Well, my name is Miles Grant again, and I just want to tell you, I'm on to you. This has all been a test to see who can sit on the church pew the longest. I can tell you, we've all passed your little test here tonight. So, but when it comes to this race, I mean, as some people have said, people do want to know what the real differences are in this campaign. And what I would ask you to look at is who is, not who's standing up and saying the right things to you now, but who's been standing up on the issues that we care about. As chair of Arlingtonians for a Clean Environment, I stood up against the expansion by 66, wrote a letter to Governor Kane and said we want any available funds to be used to fund Metro. Who stood up on issues like marriage rights for all? Who's willing to put it on their website? Who's willing to put it on their brochure? It's one thing to say in front of a group of good Democrats, I'm for marriage rights, but who's willing to go out on doors and, when they meet somebody, they might not know where they stand? Who's willing to stand up before I even, know where you stand on the streetcar to tell you how I feel about it? So I think that's really what I'd like you to look at. That, again, no matter what the issue, I hope you trust me to take the progressive stand on the issues that we care about. Go down to Richmond, and, even if it's not the popular thing to do, I might not win the vote every time, but I will go down to Richmond and fight for Arlington values. I thank you for your time. Again, my website is milesgrant2009.com. Thanks.
Thank you so much for coming. This has been tremendous.